So thank you all again for joining CMX Denver today for this virtual event. The theme is how to track slam dunk metrics and prove community ROI. If this is your first virtual Connect event, we just have a few guidelines to keep in mind. Number one is to close any distracting applications. An hour can fly by really fast, and we would love to hear from as many of you as possible during this kind of roundtable discussion. So would love it if you are able to be completely present. I think we'll get the most out of it. You can use the chat box to ask questions and leave comments. If you want to speak up and maybe aren't sure when to chime in, feel free to use the chat box and we can call on you and make sure you get your words in. Definitely don't want you to feel intimidated. And then grab your favorite snack or drink. It's lunchtime here in Colorado, so maybe you're using this as your lunch break. Maybe you're still working on your breakfast, or maybe it's coffee time over on the East Coast or internationally in the evening. Whatever the case may be, just get comfy and comfortable. So we have CMX Connect chapters all across the world. I know we have a lot of people who are part of our Denver chapter here today, or Greater Colorado chapter. If you haven't found a chapter in your local spot, or if you haven't signed up for the email list, definitely check that out on CMX. If you don't have a chapter and are interested in starting one, that could always be an option too. We host regular virtual events and then also try to gather in person when it is safe to do so. So our goals with these events are always to connect. So hopefully you all can connect with one another via this discussion or in the chat. Feel free to drop in, any of your social profiles or ways for folks to get in touch. We can also always continue the conversation on the Slack workspace via CMX afterwards. So most of us are probably on there too. And there's a Facebook group too, if you are more inclined to use Facebook over Slack. We can learn. So I'm hoping that everyone can walk away with at least one actionable thing that you can implement today. And then we're all about advocating to continue to grow the community industry and to grow together as community leaders. This event is hosted on Bevy. So Bevy is a software that is all about scaling in-person and virtual communities. My name is Cassie. I am a community manager at a company called Newsbreak. I've been spearheading this Denver CMX chapter for pretty much exactly a year now. So we've had a lot of great events. I've loved getting to know so many folks from all over, and I'm excited to continue this today. So just a brief overview of what the event will look like. We have some introductions. I have two new Colorado Connect hosts to introduce you all to, which I'm really excited about. We'll give a brief overview of the topic at hand. Then we'll start with our roundtable, do a giveaway. So 2 people will walk away with CMX swag bags, which we're excited to give away. And, we will wrap up from there. So without further ado, I'm really excited, or I was really excited a couple months ago to be contacted by 2 wonderful community builders located here in Colorado that were interested in getting more involved in CMX, and their names are Jody Meyer and Lori Goldman, and this is their first official welcome to the CMX Connect team as hosts for our specifically Denver, Colorado chapters. So from here on out, they're going to help me continue to plan even more awesome virtual and in-person events for our community. So because I do know we have some of our chapter members here today, I wanted to recognize them and give them a chance to introduce themselves. So Jody, do you mind telling the audience a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. I'm so thrilled. Part of the reason I wanted to join the CMX host is I'm also very new to Colorado. I moved here like 2 months ago in process of buying a house and all that good stuff, but definitely am looking to meet and get out and see everyone. I've been managing communities kind of I shouldn't say on and off, either as a primary role or a sub role for over 10 years now. I'm currently with Juniper Networks, but I've previously worked with Cvent, as well as been in the association sphere managing their communities. So happy to help join and launch things off this year.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Lori, would you mind introducing yourself?
Not at all. Hi, everybody. My name is Lori Goldman. I am a community advocate at Fordrock. I'm also very active on the CMX Slack channel. Let's see. My favorite things are metrics, events, SEO, and gosh, what else? I really love the CMX community, and I'm so excited to be part of it, and have been working with some other CMX managers on some really cool projects, such as Blake Etheridge. If you don't know him, highly recommend checking him out. Maybe thinking about Ella and I are thinking about maybe forming a CMX band. So if anybody over here plays the musical instruments, you reach out and please connect with me on LinkedIn. And thank you for coming.
Awesome. So official welcomes to Jody and Lori again. I'm so excited to have them as part of our team. If you are based here in Denver, you can expect some more events coming soon. And we'll dabble again with in-person events very soon. So stay tuned for that. Some key points for today. Again, this is a roundtable discussion. We are hoping that we can all kind of come together, share experiences, resources, learnings, challenges, and talk through them together. So this is you're encouraged to have your camera on, unmute yourself, and get involved in the conversation. We are toying with something new today where we created a Miro board where you can add notes as we go along. And this will hopefully be something that we can all take away with us as we, leave today and, get ideas and remember things that come up in conversation. So you can dive into the Miro board. I put a link in the chat, but I can put it again once I'm free of my slides. But just encourage you all to get in there if you are comfortable using Miro and just writing notes that hopefully we can all share in the long run. Awesome. So one thing I just wanted to touch on, if you haven't caught it already, CMX recently released the 2022 Community Industry Report. And this is a really great resource. Again, we can drop the link to this in the chat if you haven't seen it already. But essentially, it was one of the biggest surveys of community managers done and just really dove into future trends, challenges, business outcomes, and what's just going on in the community industry as a whole, and for community managers to be thinking about this year. And it was no surprise that the second biggest challenge CMs were reporting was quantifying the value of their community, which, if you've been in this field for a while, it is a hot topic. It always has been, and something I think community managers are always thinking about or being asked. And these were just some other takeaways from the report specifically having to do with that. Organizations believe in the value of community, but continue to struggle to measure that value. So 87% agree community is critical to the company's mission, and 79% believe community has a positive impact on the organization's objectives, but only 10% say they can financially quantify the value of their community, and only 1/3 can connect their community data to their customer data. So I'm super curious to know if we have folks here today that are in that 10% or 1/3 that are quantifying it financially or connecting it to their customer data. Definitely something we want to get into today. So please keep that top of mind. Again, are you able to financially quantify the business value of your community? 55% say it's a work in progress, 10% say yes, 35% say no. Feel free to chime in the chat too, kind of where you're at with that. There's no wrong answers. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. The majority of us are working on it or don't even know where to begin. So that's what we want to dive into. And then finally, does your community data connect to your CRM? 37% have a CRM that connects community and customer data. 37% have a CRM, but it does not connect community and customer data. And 26% do not have a CRM, period. So that's something we'll also dive into. We have a good amount of people here, and we want to make this as easy of a forum to engage with as possible. So in order for myself and my fellow co-hosts to kind of know where we want to go from here, if we want to keep it open or do breakout rooms, would love it if you all could pop into slido.com. You can access it on your phone or in another tab if that's better for you. Just go to slido.com and then enter the code 687586 and let us know how you are hoping or able to engage today. Will you be able to share your experience out loud, or are you just hoping to learn and listen? I'll just give it just a minute or so for you all to chime in, and we can go from there. Let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen. I'm gonna catch up on some of the chats. Awesome. Great. I'm so glad to see so many people are willing to speak up. I think we have enough, like a good amount of a crowd here where I think we'll just leave it actually to one room here today. And again, no pressure to speak, but if you, or put on your camera or whatnot, but if you want to, please do. And then also feel free to engage in the chat as well. If you're having any technical difficulties, feel free to chime in there too, and we can help you out. Great, so we're gonna go ahead and get started with the meat of our questions here today. So the question I thought we could start off with, so in that community report, they stated, again, CMX kind of came up with this. David Spinks, who you all probably know is the head of CMX, authored it. It was said that in order to measure the value of community, it's critical that teams can connect their community member data to systems where sales and customer data is tracked. Would love to just kick it off with that. Basically, does anyone have an example of a CRM that they're using where you are able to connect community to customer data? Or is this something you're thinking about or struggling with? Maybe you have been asked to do this and aren't sure where to go. This is definitely an open forum too, to piggyback questions off of questions to chat with one another.
Are we allowed to just like talk?
Yeah, come off of mute and start talking. I know we have a large group here, but yeah, don't be shy.
Cool. I actually spend a lot of time in open source because I spend a lot of time with the Chaos community, which is all about open source metrics. And it's sponsored by Bitergia, which is this amazing metric system that's capable of just coalescing a whole bunch of different platforms. So I tend to use that, and it includes a lot of CRM functionality.
Awesome. Are you finding that that's working well for you, or is there anything that you feel like you're lacking or like needing to kind of fill holes for where you're at currently?
I mean, it's an open source program, so of course there's like a difficult onboarding experience, to be honest, but I kind of wish, if I'm real, that most of my clients who aren't open source software can still use Bitergia. It's not really possible unless you're like a SaaS company, but it's just like the gold mine for me whenever I find a company that can use it.
Awesome. Blake, I saw you turned in the chat. Are you able to come off mute, or are you gonna mainly chat it up? Chat it up. Okay. Alex says, don't directly connect. But one of our products is a marketing automation platform. That and our cookie data passes into our CRM. So when looking at a contact record in CRM, you can see that person's activity. We can also roll that into the account level and see which companies and individuals are more active, even if not logged in. Yeah,
I'm
that
happy to
sounds very,
chime in my experience, which I should
yeah.
also note, not only am I new to Colorado, but I'm new to Juniper Network. So it's nothing like moving. So I can't speak a lot to where I'm currently at, but I know at previous organizations, I've done API with core, vanilla and then activity sync with higher logic. But I also know, I'm like, just because that data is flowing in to our CRM or information, it does take a next level analyst or someone to build reports to make sense of, yeah, just because they've logged in, or like it takes a lot, it takes another level of work, even if the data is flowing there. And I can't say I've built that piece, but I've definitely consumed it in a Tableau report or a Dojo report as well. That helped filter those, made sense of the chaos flowing.
Yeah, and kind of bouncing off of that, I have found that taking, like, in my view, there are ways that you could really approach this problem. And data analysts are kind of starting to move away from one where, like, the CRM has been for years the gold standard, right? It's a data warehouse where you can structure data, interact with data, turn it into variables, and then start filling in your questions like a Mad Lib. But now it's starting to move from a data warehouse structure where it's all structured data, it's all nicely placed, into a data lake where APIs are like the perfect thing, because now you don't need a single source of truth because it's all talking to itself, and the data lake is telling you here's how to structure the information to pull it out. And then information that seemed not useful in big data can suddenly be useful for your business later on down the road, and you didn't have to build the infrastructure to do that. Tableau and APIs are awesome.
For someone who is just getting started, or yeah, maybe doesn't really have any direction about how to even find these kind of softwares or get like establish the links to begin with. Claire, is that you or yeah?
That's me.
Does anyone have any sort of suggestions for where they would even be able to kind of start getting familiar with this, or even like what stakeholders maybe to talk to better understand where they need to go?
I think part of it is that data lake of like understanding your goals and then finding what the data you need, because again, it can just be a massive amount, but you have to start with, what are we trying to achieve? Are we trying to achieve success? Are we trying to achieve product ideation? Because those things help identify what are the data points you want to filter into. So identifying those organizational goals, I think, is a great start.
Awesome. Chris Mercer seems to be endorsed, as well as measurementmarketing.io. Oh, would love to hear your hot take.
Kind of on that, when it comes to figuring out your goals, the conversation, and I have been struggling a lot with this. This is a hot take because all of the other, like the measurement community in marketing and in data analysts and everything like that, it's kind of been bleeding into the community space. But the problem is, like, we are not a scientific area. We are a social scientific entity. So we need to be using social scientific processes. And that means benchmark and forecast. So a lot of people will ask me, well, what are your KPIs? What are your key performance indicators? As if there are specific things that we're looking at, like it's a simple scientific process. It's not. And in fact, your KPI should be constantly changing every 2 weeks, because you benchmark what happens on day one and you say, I need this number to go, and I need to see how that's going to impact the culture of my community. So then you spend 2 weeks working on that KPI and it goes up, but then you notice on your dashboard, another number just went down. So now you say, okay, my KPI for the next 2 weeks is for this number to meet. So you're benchmarking and forecasting and benchmarking and forecasting, which isn't a thing that really happens in a lot of data analysts. So your KPIs there aren't any because they regularly change. The KPI is just whatever metric you chose during that time to focus on for 2 weeks.
Do you have any tips for someone that might be getting like almost pushback from maybe their leaders that are expecting, you know, like quarterly KPIs or something like that? Kind of how can we best like convey that maybe that framework doesn't work best for this type of work?
The second you saw that, I was looking at Claire's like video. That response though, do you want to kind of explain a little bit on that?
You're asking Cassie or me?
Yeah.
I work in a small community space. It's a large community, but it's a small company. And this is something that I regularly run into, which is talking about in sort of like engagement and brand loyalty and willingness to purchase. Like we have 20 WhatsApp channels with various spin-offs from the community. We have a private app. We have all these different platforms. We also have a CRM. And the value of the community and cultivating the community, it's been hard to translate that into business in any other term than marketing success. And so I'm constantly asked for like, well, how many number of people said this? Where are you getting the sensing? And right now, I personally am the supercomputer that organizes all that just by tracking all of this kind of manually. And so that's been a real challenge with a very metrics oriented COO to say, I've seen this X number of times when at this point we don't have a way of tracking those. Like very few people, only the most upset customers are going to fill out a survey form that they're upset about the experience. But I can see 15 people chatting about it, and I know that that's an issue and an opportunity for us to grow into excellence. However, without some sort of metric to address it, it's become sort of this like lost in translation piece of like, this needs to be nurtured. This is where we're failing our community. That's kind of what I run into. And then also saying like, what are the KPIs given at this point that we're tracking across all of these organic platforms? Because that's one thing we really do want to do is let the community self-organize. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, I think that brings up a couple of things. Almost, it kind of bleeds into one of my next questions, which is a little bit more general, and we could have even started with this one, but like, what metrics are most relevant? And this is probably different for all of us. I think everyone's coming from different organizations and different platforms and whatnot. But again, there's probably a couple people in your same boat. So I'd love to hear from as many people as possible. But what metrics are most relevant when proving ROI where you're at right now, or maybe that's something you're trying to figure out, and yeah, so what metrics are most relevant when proving ROI and presenting it to your stakeholders?
For myself and my role and my stakeholders, it's really around engagement rate. And so, and then I emphasize why, what the value is in measuring our engagement rate, and where they want to see, our marketers, they want to see, our stakeholders want to see numbers that say we had X many new followers this week or this month, this quarter we had 1,000 new followers, but rather the KPIs that I push for and measure with are more around engagement and on that community aspect of, of course, building our follower base, but that's by doing so with active community engagement and working closely there. So I think that's one big KPI that I focus on.
And where is your community engaging? Like on what kind of platform?
All of them. So I'm at, the largest tech companies in the world. And so I'm a community manager on the B2B side and across everything from TikTok to Reddit to LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. Actually, we're not active on Facebook. So.
Got it. Very cool. Thank you for sharing. Does anyone else want to share what they're kind of looking at for their communities, or maybe any roadblocks that they're coming about trying to establish which metrics they should be looking at?
I've done percentage of customers engaged on the platform, like 80%. We're trying to maintain a percentage of our customer base on the community. And I'm going to also put quotation marks engaged. I think we were just like, they've logged in, yay, versus actually posting, upvoting, or doing things. I think we were just looking for a percentage of customers.
Yeah, kind of bouncing off of that, I find that the mission of the company that is rooted inside of the community and the mission of the community tend to bump heads a lot. And when those complications, those bumped heads between the mission of the community and the mission of the company aren't resolved, the definitions that are core and integral to your metrics suddenly have different definitions. So like, what does engagement look like to the community? And what is healthy for that? And is that engagement useful for the business? Does the business consider that real and proper engagement? So you have to really like suss out the definitions between engagement for your C-suite and engagement for your community, and find a metric that basically says, yes, our community was useful at turning this.
Yeah, spot on, because our engagement could be really high, but it could have been on Reddit and ultimately extremely negative comparing against a competitive. So maybe our post got extremely high engagement, but it was saying how every one of our competitors is better. And so, yeah, it's really, I couldn't agree more.
I put this in the chat. I have some more questions, but I'm just wondering if anyone here who's tuning in has a problem or question that they're trying to solve for when it comes to tracking your metrics, proving ROI, that they kind of want to bring to the table, because I think we have a lot of great minds in the room, and I want to make sure that you feel like you're getting your specific challenges answered too, or you know, at least we're talking about it. Anyone feel comfortable sharing? No questions? Okay. I can ask my next question then, and then keep thinking about it, and we can get to it before we wrap up. So what resources, I know, like thinking more, I think in like the marketing.io, measurementmarketing.io, Chris Mercer, would love to hear about other resources that y'all have found useful in continuing to prove community ROI. Like, are there other community experts, courses, templates, or even softwares that you want to shout out? Like Alex brought up Sugar CRM. We heard about, but how do you pronounce it? Bitergia. But yeah, these are the kinds of like things that everyone can kind of walk away with and look into when this is all said and done. What has helped you, I guess, in your journey to learn more about metrics? Let's see. chaos.community/metrics. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so again, this is open source, but when Chaos kind of conceived itself, so Chaos is a open source community metrics community. So the whole idea is, how do we measure community health in DevOps repos and stuff like that? And they started putting together like, okay, what are the metrics that we recommend? How do they work? What can we do? So they kind of put them all together on a page. And it quickly spiraled into useful for all communities, not just open source communities. So I go to it fairly frequently. I've also committed several metrics to the page as well. It's an awesome community resource.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Anything else that anyone like where I'm just curious where everyone else is looking to learn or grow. I mean, I know I get a lot out of the CMX space. There's different conferences, and then I also turn to the tools and resource available like on the platforms that I'm using. I've been really inspired by how much great like community events and conferences there, or not conferences, but like virtual events that have been out there to talk about these things. Just wondering if there's any that have stood out to y'all that we would maybe want to catch recordings of. Yeah, Jody.
I was just gonna say, I'm gonna second yours. Like, just for ease of business, like if you're doing like whatever platform you're using is a great place to start following and attending their events, because they're gonna optimize their webinars or other things for the platform you're using. So I think the platform you're using, whether it's, I use Higher Logic and Vanilla the most, but Facebook groups or other things, like just checking out what's out there, because I also CMX follow a lot of people on social media. Like, I don't think some of these platforms, like, I'm an avid lurker on social media, but I follow a lot of people on Twitter, Christina Garnett at HubSpot. Like, there's just so many people on Twitter and other spaces, LinkedIn, to just listen, that it's just huge on those pieces. I mean, tech platforms, again, I'm not a tech expert, but like find somebody who's a Tableau expert, like Network or Domo, or an analyst if your organization's big enough. I know prior to making the hop to B2B companies, I was at an association, so I lived in Excel. So it does make a difference reaching out and finding your network and friends and who can help. But yeah, I do have other ones that I was gonna like schlep in the Miro board of links. But I of course follow Sumax, Comsor, like all the major people. I consume a lot.
It's important. I mean, we're all again facing the same challenges together, and I don't think anyone has it all figured out. I wanted to circle back then to the report, and specifically the words. Yeah, that's great advice. Don't discount what you can learn using the tools at your current disposal, your web host site, Google Analytics, and similar tools. Yeah, is anyone here being asked to financially quantify the business value of your community? And if so, how's that going? And what are you kind of coming up against? According to this report, again, out of everyone that took it, 10% said they were able, 55% say it's a work in progress. So assuming most people here in that work in progress stage, would love to kind of hear more. Is anyone facing this? Measure your community generated leads. Can we talk a little bit about that?
I feel like I've been talking a lot, but
No,
yeah.
thank you. No, you're welcome. You have a lot of great insights to share, so I appreciate you speaking up.
This makes me pretty excited, to be honest. But community generated leads. Marketing has had to spend upwards of 2 decades now, ever since like virtual ad buying became a thing, having to prove that their ad spend leads to bottom line developments. And that funnel has been developed. It works. That industry has been forced to structure itself around the concept of multiple points of conversion. For community, that's more difficult, again, because like we're not as structured as an industry as they are. But that doesn't mean that we don't have the onus of measuring that aspect as well. So we need to be building that infrastructure to essentially say, this is a community generated lead. This is given to me, not the marketing team. This is given to me, not the sales team. This is given to me, not the workshop team. You know, So we need to be able to measure those community generated leads for bottom line value, because that's what really matters once you get into the center of a brand. Your CEO wants to know, did this community and its subsistence that I am paying for generate income for the business? So you need to be able to build and prove that leads coming in from your community have actually impacted the business as a whole.
Totally. That makes sense.
I would say to add on to that, and in addition to leads, is also customer retention. And so we want to ensure, really around communities is, we want to be actively involved and around, tech companies. We need to be actively involved with support and ICS, or customer service. And yeah, so essentially I think, it's, really around also is, maintaining that customer base and continuing to build upon them as well. And so that's to help kind of prove the value of the community is, yes, they were already, existing users and customers, but we've, moved them up and upscaled them to a new solution that's more profitable. And so showing that metric.
Mm-hmm. Great. Jody, you said case deflection. Prior to the relaunch of previous community, people needed to call support and submit a product idea, and they would call to check on their product suggestion. Yep, that makes sense. I mean, I think it all kind of ties back to what we talked about earlier in the chat, especially about, just kind of identifying what is the ultimate goal and what what are the stakeholders going to see as the biggest value for your community. And I think those generated leads, case deflection, all that can definitely play in depending on your organization's goals. Alex says, we don't feel confident in giving exact ROI, but we do measure ourselves against correlations of renewals and customer satisfaction. Awesome. We can see percentage of accounts that are active, which ties into ultimate company goals. Thanks, Blake. Awesome. Yeah. And then anytime the sales team can leverage, so kind of bringing in other stakeholders or other departments into your community work and making sure that you're surfacing all that you're doing and how that is impacting their bottom line as well. Sounds like it's working out for Alex as well. Are there any other questions that, again, anyone wanted to touch on? We also wanted to leverage this kind of like roundtable experience to, get a clue into maybe what are still some of the main pain points that we want to focus on for, future discussions or bringing in, other panelists to talk about it. So if you have any thoughts there, please reach out to us and we can pass it along and think about, future programming for our Connect team or other ones across the US. So I know this gave me a lot to think about, but is there anything else that's top of mind for anyone here? No?
I'll just add in to add into what Vinny is saying in the chat is I couldn't agree more. We definitely, no matter what we're going to measure, is we need to ensure that we're measuring it. And so whether, Google Analytics is right and easy out the box and just using that source code to make sure that everything, we can demonstrate that it came through from the community or from our, whether it's our community platform or Reddit or whichever, different platforms we're using, is that we can then demonstrate that value. And if it's not Google Analytics, it could be, Bitly, something simple as that, just to, attach those source codes where we can really keep track of it. So I think that's awesome.
Definitely. That's a great tip. Anything else?
I was going to say, I think you hit that nail on the head, Alex, with causation versus correlation. It's so hard with community to do those two things. The other area, again, I have lots of ideas, unsuccessful at not, but advocacy. I always use the car dealership. You're always going to trust an online form more than you're going to trust a car dealer. And I always my mom is my favorite example. Like if she has problems with her car, she doesn't want to take it to the dealer. She's literally Googled it and then taken it to a different car fix-it shop after she's like, no, this is what's wrong. I'm not taking it to the dealer. So I don't know how to accurately put dollars to that trust that your customers are, hey, we can solve your problems. This is how you do it. It's hard to build that. There's not causation versus correlation, but building advocates, like they're doing the selling for you in your community and just giving them a space to do that for them, where you have eyes and ears to, how do I say, steer correct, but not moderate, like any negative things like, oh, wow, that's a pain point we've resolved. Here's how to do it, is much better than them going rogue in some Reddit forum. So just because it's not in your community doesn't mean they're not saying it, but give them a space at least that you can help. Yeah.
I have a hot take on that too.
Go for it.
So in data analytics, in my opinion, like this is coming from me, this isn't like elsewhere or whatever, which is to say it's like insubstantiated theory crafting. But in my view, when building setups and talking about causation versus correlation in social science, it's really important to build correlation first and then prove the correlation isn't causation. So the isn't is really, really important there. You're always arguing against yourself. With that said, the infrastructure that I tend to use when data comes in, you can first get it reporting true. So the data comes in and that data is that data. It did happen. There was a click on the website. There was a comment that was kind of like putting the product on blast for a reason. So the data is reporting true, but that's not really useful, right? So the second level on this like pyramid of data is what's reporting useful. So you've massaged it. You've said, okay, we've put some structure to understand the truth of this data. We're testing it now. It's benchmarkable. So this is useful, right? But it's not necessarily accurate. It's inaccurate, but it is enough for you to say, we're pretty sure this is the direction and you can now take action on it. This is very useful. And then the top of that pyramid, the like gold mine, so to speak, the thing that everyone wants is accurate. And that's where causation kind of sits. Is it really necessary? Because at a certain point in time, you find that proving causation from your correlation has diminishing returns. Do you really need it? So you want to climb up on that pyramid from useful, from truth-telling to useful to accurate, only so much as it matters for you to make a decision. And when you find that you need more granular data and that you need the causation to do something for you to take an action, then you seek that greater amount of accuracy. Don't worry so much about causation because you're going to be benchmarking against itself, against the past. You'll get to causation over time anyway. It will prove itself either right or wrong over time if you're measuring it correctly.
Awesome. Thank you. That was a great explanation and good takeaway. I think that was awesome to wrap up on, but I'm happy to welcome any other points or final takeaways anyone from the group wants to share. Okay. I'm having trouble with my wheel of names for the giveaway, but I have a record of everyone that was here today, so I will run that after we sign off and reach out to the 2 lucky winners. Please find me in the CMX Slack workspace. I'm just Cassie Perez. Pretty easy to get in touch with there. You also can email me. My email's on the CMX email, like if you reply to the emails you've been getting about this event, it would probably come to me. And yeah, would love to hear again about like any other ideas that y'all have, feedback that you have, things that you want to keep seeing for this year, because again, you know, the goal of these events is to just grow and learn and connect together. So thank you for everyone for coming today. Thanks to those that chimed in with all your great insights and takeaways. And I hope you all have an awesome rest of the day. Catch you later.